Emotional Intelligence for Leaders course. Module 2, Lesson 1, What is Self-Awareness? In this first lesson, we're starting with the basics. What exactly is self-awareness? Let's begin with a question. Have you ever reacted strongly to something, only to realize later that your reaction had more to do with you than the situation itself? That moment of realization, that's a spark of self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly, to understand your thoughts, your emotions, and how your behavior affects others. It's being conscious of what's happening inside you and how it influences what you do on the outside. Without it, leadership becomes guesswork. With it, leadership becomes intentional. Now, there are two key dimensions to self-awareness. The first is internal self-awareness. This is your ability to recognize your own values, passions, fears, triggers, strengths, and weaknesses. It's asking questions like, why do I feel this way? Why did I respond like that? What does this decision say about who I am? The second is external self-awareness. This is understanding how others see you. It's recognizing that your tone, your body language, and your emotional energy leave an impact, whether you mean to or not. Both types of self-awareness are essential for leadership. You can't lead yourself without internal self-awareness, and you can't lead others without external self-awareness. So why does this matter? Because leaders without self-awareness create confusion, not clarity. They often act from impulse rather than insight. They struggle to admit mistakes, and they push people away without realizing why. But self-aware leaders are different. They are reflective, they are honest about their flaws, and grounded in their values. They connect better with their teams and make wiser, calmer decisions, especially under pressure. Think about the most inspiring leader you know, maybe someone from your life or from history. Chances are that leader wasn't perfect, but they were self-aware. They knew who they were and what they stood for, and that clarity gave them strength. That's what we're building in this course. As we continue in this module, we'll explore how emotions work in the brain, how to identify your emotional triggers, and practical tools to grow your self-awareness daily. But for now, reflect on this. What are the emotions you've been feeling most often lately? And what might they be telling you? Self-awareness begins not with answers, but with honest questions. Lesson 2, the science behind self-awareness. Why do we feel what we feel? How does the brain play a role in our emotional reactions and leadership choices? Understanding this is a game changer. Let's begin with the brain. At the center of your emotional world are two important brain regions, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is your brain's emotional alarm system. It's responsible for detecting threats, processing fear, and triggering fight or flight responses. It's fast, it's automatic, and it doesn't always wait for permission. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is the logical, decision-making part of your brain. It helps you evaluate situations, consider consequences, and regulate your behavior. So what happens when you face a stressful situation at work, like sudden conflict in a meeting or unexpected criticism from your team? Your amygdala jumps into action. It floods your system with emotional signals, anger, fear, defensiveness, before your logical brain even has a chance to step in. This is called emotional hijacking, when emotions overpower logic and take control of your behavior. It's why leaders snap. It's why they sometimes regret what they say. And it's why untrained emotion can damage influence. But here's the good news. When you build self-awareness, you strengthen your prefrontal cortex. You create space between the trigger and your reaction. Instead of just reacting, you start choosing. You stop and ask, what exactly am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? And what response serves me best at this moment? This is where real leadership begins. Scientists have found that when leaders practice mindfulness and reflection, the brain's emotional and logical centers begin to work in better harmony. You literally rewire your brain for better decisions, stronger self-control, and healthier relationships. This is why self-aware leaders don't just seem calmer. Their brains are actually working more effectively under stress. Think of self-awareness like emotional fitness. Just like physical exercise builds strength and resilience, emotional reflection builds mental clarity and balance. With consistent practice, you'll begin to notice your emotions without being ruled by them. And when you do, everything changes. So let's pause and reflect. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? That was your amygdala in charge. But now you know better. And when you know better, you can lead better. In the next lesson, we'll talk about emotional triggers, those invisible buttons that set us off, and how you can identify them before they control you. Lesson 3, Emotional Triggers and Patterns. In our last lesson, we explored how the brain processes emotions and how self-awareness helps you respond rather than react. Now we go one level deeper. Today's focus, emotional triggers and behavioral patterns. These are the invisible forces that often shape your leadership without you even realizing it. Let's start with a simple definition. An emotional trigger is any event, word, tone, or situation that causes an intense emotional reaction in you. It could be anger, shame, defensiveness, or even anxiety, often disproportionate to the moment. You're not just reacting to the present. You're reacting to something from the past, something deep and personal. Let's make it real. Maybe someone gives you feedback and your chest tightens. You feel threatened, even though the comment was neutral. Why? Because you've been judged unfairly before, and now feedback feels like an attack. Or maybe a team member questions your decision in front of others, and you immediately feel disrespected. That's not just about them. It's about your relationship with control, status, or maybe a history of not being heard. Every leader has emotional triggers, but unaware leaders become slaves to them. Self-aware leaders study them, learn from them, and manage them. Here are some common emotional triggers that show up in leadership. Being criticized, being ignored or dismissed, feeling out of control, being misunderstood, confrontation, deadlines and pressure, seeing others break the rules, uncertainty or sudden change. Do any of these resonate with you? Now, beyond the triggers themselves are your emotional patterns, the repetitive ways you tend to respond. Maybe you shut down when you're stressed. Maybe you get sarcastic when you feel insecure. Maybe you become controlling when you're afraid of failure. These patterns were learned, often long ago. But the good news? They can be unlearned. The key is to track your reactions. Observe your emotional loops. Ask yourself, what situations repeatedly frustrate me? What emotion usually shows up in those moments? And what's the behavior that follows? Awareness is the first step to breaking the cycle. Here's a simple exercise. Think back to the last time you got emotionally upset at work. Write it down. What was said? What did you feel? What memory or belief might have been triggered in that moment? This simple act of reflection can open the door to deep personal growth. Remember, emotional triggers don't make you weak. They make you human. But refusing to understand them, that's what weakens leadership. Strong leaders own their emotions before their emotions own them. In the next lesson, we'll explore how to name your emotions clearly, because when you know what you're feeling, you gain the power to lead through it. So pause today, reflect on your triggers, recognize your patterns. You're not stuck. You're just getting started. Lesson 4. Emotional vocabulary and naming emotions. In this lesson, we're tackling a crucial leadership skill that many ignore, the ability to name what you're feeling. You see, if you can't name it, you can't manage it. And if you can't manage it, it will manage you. Most adults use only a handful of emotion words: happy, sad, angry, stressed. But the emotional landscape is much more complex. You don't just feel bad. You might feel disappointed, ashamed, insecure, frustrated, or overwhelmed. Each has its own cause and its own solution. When leaders don't expand their emotional vocabulary, they stay stuck in confusion. They react instead of respond. And they misread not only themselves, but others too. Imagine this. You're feeling tight in your chest and snapping at small things. If all you say is, "I'm stressed," you might miss what's really going on. Maybe it's not stress. Maybe it's fear of failure. Maybe it's embarrassment. You made a mistake and you're feeling exposed. Or maybe it's resentment. You're taking on more than your fair share. Each emotion points to a different route. When you name the emotion correctly, you unlock the door to clarity and action. This is called emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between similar but different feelings. Here's the truth. Leaders with high emotional granularity are more resilient. They recover faster, they communicate better, and they build stronger, healthier teams. Why? Because they understand what they're feeling and why it matters. So how can you build this skill? Start with a list of feeling words. Practice identifying subtle differences between emotions. Ask yourself, am I feeling angry or disrespected? Am I sad or grieving a loss of control? Am I anxious or just uncertain and unprepared? The more precise you are, the more empowered you become. Here's a helpful tool. Use the sentence, I feel somehow because of what happened. Example, I feel irritated because I feel ignored in meetings. I feel nervous because I'm unsure how this decision will affect the team. I feel proud because I handled that situation better than before. This builds emotional clarity and emotional responsibility. And don't just stop with yourself. Leaders who use clear emotional language help others do the same. They create a culture where people feel safe, seen, and supported. They replace vague statements like, I'm fine, with honest ones like, I'm frustrated but working through it. So here's your challenge. Over the next 48 hours, pause at least 3 times and ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? What word best describes it? What is this emotion trying to tell me? You'll be surprised how much insight you gain from just naming what you feel. Next, we'll explore practical self-awareness tools, like journaling and emotional check-ins, so you can build this skill daily and strengthen your leadership from the inside out. You're becoming the kind of leader the world needs, grounded, aware, and emotionally wise. Lesson 5, Tools for Building Self-Awareness. We've explored what self-awareness is, how it works in the brain, how to identify emotional triggers, and how to name your emotions. Now it's time to go practical. In this final lesson of the module, we'll look at simple but powerful tools you can use daily to grow your self-awareness and lead with clarity. Because emotional intelligence isn't just a concept, it's a daily discipline. Let's begin with the most underrated but powerful tool of all, journaling. Journaling helps you slow down and reflect. It gives structure to your thoughts and space for your emotions. You don't need to be a writer. You just need to be honest. Try this simple daily prompt. What happened today? What did I feel? Why did I feel that way? How did I respond? What can I learn from it? This kind of reflective writing increases emotional clarity and strengthens your decision-making over time. Next tool, emotional check-ins. Leaders often move fast, meetings, decisions, pressure, and in all of it, emotions can get buried. An emotional check-in is a short pause to ask, what am I feeling right now? What's driving this feeling? What do I need in this moment? You can do this first thing in the morning, between meetings, or before a difficult conversation. Just 60 seconds of self-honesty can prevent hours of miscommunication. Tool 3, feedback reflection. Feedback is a mirror, but most leaders avoid it or defend against it. Instead, try asking for it. After a meeting, ask someone you trust. How did I come across just now? Did I seem present and calm or reactive? Is there anything I didn't notice about my tone or body language? Don't take it personally. Take it seriously. Growth begins where defensiveness ends. Tool 4, mindful pausing. In moments of tension, don't rush to respond. Take a breath. Count 1 to 20. Reconnect with your values. Ask, is this emotion helping or harming the situation? What outcome do I really want here? That pause can change everything. It puts your logical brain back in charge. And finally, values alignment. Take time regularly to reflect on your core values. Ask yourself, am I leading in line with what matters most to me? Are my decisions reflecting my integrity and purpose? When leaders lose self-awareness, they drift. But when they return to their values, they lead with authenticity. Let's recap. To build daily self-awareness, 1. Journal your thoughts and emotions. 2. Check in with yourself often. 3. Invite honest feedback, or pause before reacting. 5. Reflect on your values. These aren't just habits, they're leadership tools. And over time, they create a leader who is grounded, wise, and emotionally steady. So here's your final challenge for this module. Pick one tool, just one. Use it every day this week. Watch what happens.